Hey everybody, this is Sir Knight, and today I'm finally bringing you that Stormblood video I was promising. So, to give a general idea of why it's taken so long, I have had a hell of a couple weeks, being tired. At one point I threw out my back. There was one entire week where I was constantly fighting disconnect boss for my internet, so I finally got that resolved, but I also started working on Shadowbringers already, and I've been having a lot of fun, and I've been procrastinating, and now I'm finally working on this Stormblood video. So I do apologize for anyone who has been waiting, who I may have disappointed, but I hope this video is what you were hoping for. I'm going to kind of try and avoid doing a full summary of the video of the expansion, but every time I have started doing this video, I've recorded this numerous times, I have started giving out the entire synopsis of the story, it feels like, and I don't really want to edit down a 30 to 40 minute video. So yeah, this is gonna be my hopefully last attempt to do this video properly. Now there are gonna probably be some spoilers, because I'm not going to hold back on spoilers at this point. I'm hoping that if you're watching this video past this point where I'm saying, hey, there's spoilers, that you've either completed it or you don't mind spoilers. If you do not like spoilers, please click away from the video or mute your computer or whatever you need to do to get away from this video at this point, because I don't want to ruin your experience if that's something that you care about. Otherwise, feel free to listen to me ramble probably for about 20 or 30 minutes, and maybe less, hopefully. And I'm going to be basically going all of this in one cut, so not going to be really heavily editing this. So anyway, let me go ahead and get started. Ultimately, this beginning of the expansion is very high energy. Like you come in and you're like, all right, we gotta send these Imperials packing, and you do. And then you start to learn a little bit about the area, and you face Xenos for the first time. After facing Xenos, which should be like a high point, and it is, you realize that he's too powerful for you, and you need allies. And that's when the story kind of slows down. Like, you've basically gone through the beginning of the expansion full throttle, and you're ready to kick some ass, take names, hopefully win Y'shtola's heart if your name is Sir Knight. Of course, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of the characters in this game that I would definitely love to have a romance option with. But that being said, no, it's like you start out really like heavy. You've got this story hitting you, and you're just like, man, you got this adrenaline going, you got this real good momentum, and then the moment you come across Xenos and he defeats you, the momentum stops. And that's kind of feels like that is a theme of this expansion. It's kind of like the story is just edging you. And if you know what edging is, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you get to this climax of the story, and then just as you think you're about to fucking blow, it drops to a low point. And that's kind of what it feels like here. And it happens over and over again, it feels like. So, like, this Xenos battle was the first one, right? And then it just kind of slowly kind of progresses up to the Nodum. The Nodum being the battle on Azim's Steppe with the tribes of that area, the clans. You know, that right there is a really big moment, and you're just like, yes, this is awesome. And then you gotta go do a preparation quest because you gotta prepare for the next battle. So it's like I was really close, and then you just let me down, and so you just kind of prepare for the Dome and Castle fight. And you know, it's not inherently a bad thing, right? Because you don't want the whole story to be completely bang, 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 you know, hitting you, firing at all cylinders the entire time. Because then, you know, if you have to slow the story down for anything, you become so desensitized to the high points, and then the low points become super, like, depressing almost, right? So I understand why some of those moments had to stop, but I just feel like sometimes when you get the momentum going in the story, you just have to keep going. And then, so like when you free the Domans from the Empire, you basically, you know, you're free to go back to Alamigo. And the story slows down yet again. You now have allies that will come to aid you later, but first they still have things that they have to finish up in their land, you know, to try and get some sort of semblance of rule and some defenses going on and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely, it's like you're starting the story all over again. Because you go back to Alamigo, the only things that's really changed is the fact that Ryle has now been kidnapped, and, you know, the Alamigan resistance really hasn't made much headway in the region. It's all been just kind of little tiny tasks they've accomplished, and then of course getting Ryle kidnapped because, you know, things can't go our way for very long anyway. But you know, when you finally get back to Alamigo, you and the Resistance and the Alliance, you guys all kind of go back to pushing back the Empire. The idea is you take over some of their camps so that way they have less control of the region, until finally you've got them pushed back to Alamigo proper. In which case you come to the Alamigan quarter, you save Kryl, and then you push forward into the castle and defeat Xenos. Now, one of the coolest events in this expansion is fighting Xenos during this portion, because you start out going through Alamigo, the dungeon. You work your way through and everything, and then you finally encounter Xenos, and he's a really fun boss, I think, at least. But, you know, once you've defeated him, he flees. He goes into the Royal Menagerie. He knows what he's doing. He's not trying to run away from you. He's just trying to lure you to his next weapon. And at this point, it kind of reminds you of a classic Final Fantasy game, where you're facing off against the final boss of the game, only to find out that's not his final form. And come to find out, he actually captured Shinryu, and that's probably why he was missing for so long. But he captured it, and then so he decides to set it free, but then also he merges into the Shinryu, becoming basically Xenos, this all-powerful dragon icon. And so you do battle with Xenos as this dragon, and it's such a cool encounter. It was definitely one of those situations where learning what the active time maneuver does was very beneficial. And the fact that now I know you can just slam keys on the keyboard just to do that without having to click fast, it makes it a whole lot more tolerable. But no, it's like it's just one of those events that's like it's hard to sum up. Like, if you have played a classic Final Fantasy game and beat the final boss, you know that feeling of going through the final form of the final boss, and it was just a very epic moment. It definitely felt more epic than, you know, a Realm Reborn's final boss, for example. It was just a good moment. So, you know, that being said, that's pretty much the expansion. I mean, obviously you have the post, 4.0 patches and everything, which I'll get to that here in a second. But my main thoughts about the main game before the patches is, honestly, the highs were super high. Like, I can't take that away from them. In fact, that's a lot of the reason why I consider this to be just above a Realm Reborn in terms of story. The high points were super high, they're really awesome, and it's hard to beat those points. However, the low points were low enough that Heavensward looks so much better in comparison to Stormblood. And, you know, I've read in some places where some people have felt like Stormblood was kind of a filler expansion, and I have to agree at this point. It feels like a filler expansion. Now, what they did for the patch stories, the post Stormblood patches, the story kind of became intriguing from that point. So, obviously, early in the story, Gosetsu and Yotsuyu, they basically Doma Castle falls on top of them, and so you go in to find Gosetsu and Yotsuyu because there's word that they're still alive. Come to find out, Yotsuyu lost her memory, so she's not an evil bitch anymore, and Gosetsu's trying to defend her. And apparently the Imperials know about Yotsuyu still being alive, so they tried to broker peace with the Domans to try and get Yotsuyu back. All this kind of goes to a point where, like, you fight Yotsuyu after she regains her memory. You fight her as an icon because she has used the power of ether and a mirror to basically transform herself into this all-powerful icon that, it's primal, that could end your whole mission, everything you fought for. And then when you defeat her, she kills her brother, because her brother was, just as much of an asshole to her as she grew up as anything else. Through this whole time of learning about Yotsuyu, you find that she was actually the victim of some really poor treatment by her stepmother and stepfather. Like, they even sold her off to I believe it was a whorehouse, and I think she ended up like in a arranged marriage that was abusive or something like that. I don't remember if that's actually true. Maybe my brain's making that up, but she dealt with a lot of shit, and it wasn't until the Empire gave her a chance to kind of gain control of her own destiny that she felt alive at that point. And so, of course, she turned into an evil bitch because everybody was a fucking asshole to her. And it's the same thing with Fordola, too. Fordola, she's the leader of the Skulls in Alamigo, and she was a royal bitch too, and she was very loyal to the Empire though, and the reason for that is because as a child, her parents were loyal to the Empire because they felt that the Empire was going to give them and their people the things that they needed, you know, that they were good people. They were obviously mistaken. They were definitely wrong. They probably shouldn't have thought that way, but they did. And unfortunately, a lot of Alamegans, they saw this, and she didn't understand, right? She thought the Empire were good people, and so growing up, she had this hatred for other Alamegans because the Alamegans actually killed her father. So as a child, basically, she was getting insulted by some random stranger, and so she ran off. And the moment that she ran off, there was a ton of Alamegans who were just completely raging at her just for her mere existence, it seemed like, and they started to throw rocks at her, and her father came running and protected her. He shielded her, and they just kept throwing rocks and hitting her father and everything. And you know, eventually one guy picked up a big enough rock, and he had enough power behind his throw that it killed her father right then and there, and that sealed her fate. She at that point hated every Alamegan out there, but at the same time, her goal was to work with the Empire to free Alamigo. She still had compassion for her land, but she hated her own people. And it was an understandable reason why she turned out the way she was, because everybody else was ugly to her. So our two main female villains were very much relatable as to why they turned out the way they were. So those two characters actually two of my favorite characters in the whole expansion. And for Dola, I would definitely request a romance option if that option ever became available, because I definitely stan her. But no, at this point here, after learning all this, the next part is basically leading up to war with the Empire again, in which case a lot of our Scion friends, they start to get what's called the calling, and they end up falling asleep and not able to be awoken because their soul has actually traveled somewhere else. That was a very interesting time, and every time that the calling hit, you thought you were going to be next, but at the same time, you're just like, oh, but I got plot armor. It's not going to happen until it finally happens. So yeah, overall, the patch content for the game was actually pretty entertaining. I did enjoy it. It definitely built up the hype for Shadowbringers, and currently that I'm playing Shadowbringers, it definitely was well worth it. I'm enjoying Shadowbringers a lot, but that'll be a video for another time. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Stormblood. I'm hoping that made sense. I'm hoping that didn't come off as too much of a rambling. Like I said, I kind of wanted to kind of give my thoughts all in one take here. Only minimal editing, just so I can edit out some coughs here. So, because I've been at this probably for about 3 hours now trying to record this same thing. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Maybe if you guys agree with me, maybe if I'm wrong about something. I do plan on eventually going back to complete some of the other unlockable content for it, like some of the trials and stuff like that. I haven't gotten around to doing that because I'm mostly focusing on the MSQ, so I can get the max level and be prepared for endwalker at the end of the year, because obviously at this point I'm kind of coming down to the wire. So yeah, but anyway, again, if you guys like this video, please consider hitting the like button. If you disliked it, go ahead and dislike it. It's all the same to me. Also subscribe if you liked any of my content so far. And just again, let me know in the comments if what you think about the Stormblood expansion, and what you look forward to in Shadowbringers if you haven't done it yet, or what you look forward to in Endwalker if you're just kind of waiting around for Endwalker to release. Anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.